Welcome to the Hot Rod Hangout podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Ashley.
And tonight we have a special guest, Ryan.
Welcome.
How you doing?
How's it going, bud?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good.
So the weather's decent up there at least.
Yeah.
Or getting better.
You know, it's getting better. Yeah. I mean, it's we've had snow a few times and it's been melting, and then more snow comes, and now it's just a big mud pie everywhere. So, and the road salt.
Oh,
yeah.
So,
I remember those days and the awkward stage in between where it melts and then freezes back again. So then all of the roads are covered in black ice until they go resalt it again. Resalt it again.
Yeah.
Resalted it.
Yep. I'm making up words.
Anyway. I don't know nothing about no salt other than the salt water.
Yeah. And that likes to, a lot of times they'll throw the brine down, and then it'll catch the first layer of snow that melts and then turns to ice. But if it happens overnight, or if it happens again, or there's another, it's all over.
Yep.
You know, but Pennsylvania.
So what got you into cars, whether it be hot rods? You know, I know your focus now is hot rods and stuff, but what originally got you into cars?
I guess just it's kind of how I was raised. Just, you know, a little kid into his toy cars. And I kind of was always into mechanical things. I build model kits growing up, from anything from airplanes to cars. What kind of led me into the hot rod world is, as I grew up, I was really into skateboarding, punk rock music. And when I became old enough to drive, you know, I started looking into like cool cars, you know, to have when you're right out of high school. And, you know, I fell into the muscle car thing for a minute, and I became friends with some guys, and they were into muscle, like early or like 60s muscle cars. Mm-hmm. Okay. And which was cool and all, but then I was like, you know, it was right when like the next wave of hot rod, like early 2000s.
Okay.
When the hot rod thing kind of came back with rockabilly, punk rock, this and that. And I became friends with a few guys that were into that, and I was like, this is where it's at. This is just the coolest thing. Like, no fenders, just total anti-authoritarian, you know, on four wheels. You know, I thought that was just the coolest thing. So, and one particular conversation I had with one of the rockabilly dudes I became friends with was, I was always saying, "Oh, I'd like to build this car. I'd like to do that car," and he said, "Nah, what's the one car that would make you happy? Like, what's the one car that you could see yourself owning like forever?" I said, "Well, I can't have a 32. I was like 18 years old. Like, that's insane." He's like, "Well, you know, what about, you know, like a Model A or something? Like, they're affordable. You can kind of piece them together and make it better as you go along." I thought it was far-fetched, and then I just gave it a shot, and little by little, piece by piece, and you learn a ton by doing that. Mm-hmm. So, definitely long-winded answer. I apologize. But
no, you're good, bud. You're good. So, I do have that 32. It's not a coupe; it's a truck. But
that's cool.
I was given the ability to. I really wasn't looking for it when it found me. You know, car guys. So you're scrolling on Facebook Marketplace, and I have a 54 that's like a rolling project, like driving project, and I'd kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, I either need to take it apart and make it the best I can, or I need a project. So I was on Facebook, and it popped up, and really good price. And I actually told her when we went to go get it, I'm like, I want you to find something wrong. Like, please talk me out of buying this as I'm standing there. Literally, the guy's one of the coolest car guys I've met. He had every replacement panel for all the rust. Like, everything, like, just lined up. And I'm like, okay, cool, yeah. Load it up.
Wow.
But that's how I ended up.
Now, is
Moonshine.
Was it with the body, bed, chassis, the whole 9 yards?
Yes. So it is a. It had a buggy spring, like a Model A buggy spring rear. It's got some chrome parts, spindles, stuff like that. Chrome drums, stuff like that. It still needs a motor, wiring, obviously, interior. The floor needs redone because they just kind of patchworked it to get it to hold shape. Couple rust repairs, but like I said, I got all the panels to do that. And it's going to be, I don't know if you're familiar with Carl Fisher, Japan's, his Dodge.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the plan for that truck.
Excellent.
Mine's not going to be on hydraulics and lay on the ground, but that is the plan, is bare metal, kind of industrial, nothing that it doesn't need, kind of the basics. So.
Excellent. Very good.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as far as 32s are concerned, I guess kind of like a buy once, cry once kind of thing, where if you can get it all in a package deal like that, meaning patch panels and replacement stuff, I mean, that's the way to go. Because if you piecemeal it, I mean, it can get insane.
Yes.
With how expensive little things can get, especially if you're in a pinch and you one thing's in the way, you got to get, the floor pan done, or you got to get, the sub rails handled before you start entertaining steering and whatever else. That can get really pricey.
Yeah. So. And that was when I bought the truck. I was like, oh yeah, like it's mostly there. Like it's not going to be, and then gradually collecting parts, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe it won't be that Chop 32 original grill. Maybe 32 grill, but it'll be a repop. Like I can't afford.
Nothing wrong with a repop.
So
nothing wrong with it. I mean, depending on where you get it.
Yeah.
But I've repops are the originals. It's cool. Don't get me wrong, but repops are I don't know. It's like those. It's like when you size up like a crazy paint job versus like just throwing something together. Like I don't want to be scared to death parking this thing in a lot and walking away. Somebody leaning on my original 32 shell with all original bars and everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because I've run into that. I parked my car. You're probably familiar with Wayne, the area Wayne. I parked in Wayne in a kind of like a shopping center kind of place, and I had the Model A out, and I took the wife to get there's a downstairs ice cream place over there, and I come back out, and there's like 4 kids leaning on my radiator taking selfies.
Oh no!
Now, granted, it's fine, it's no big deal. It's a flat black Model A, it's fine. But like if it was like a killer,
the Milner coupe sitting there, and the guys,
right?
Yeah,
it's like, man. But I see it all the time. It's just
and we preach that. Like I like looking at shiny cars, but shiny paint causes me a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like not even my car. Like my dad's truck it's a driver, but it's shiny, and I'm like, oh man, like any little imperfection, it's like. If that would be bare metal, and I've tried to get him to take the hood off of it, because it's got no side panels, but it still has the hood, and the hood raked, because the radiator's got a small block in it, so the radiator's shorter, so the radiator shell is shorter, and it's raked down. I'm like, oh yeah. So when we were rewiring it, I'm like, hey, you know what would make this really easy if we just took this hood off?
Yeah,
but.
It's a lot easier if it's not there at all.
Yeah, right. Oh, I don't want to scratch the paint. You know how to do that? Remove it. That's kind of. Yeah. But the 54 is original paint. It's rusty, but it's original.
It's just a personal opinion of mine, but I respect a patinaed original paint over anything else.
Yeah. And I mean, it's
only
its
original
quirks.
one time.
Yeah, and it's got its quirks, and there could be some rust repair done on it, but the fact that it still has the original orange from 54, it makes me happy. So.
Oh yeah, that's excellent.
So you obviously started building the Model A, and is it still the original Model A, or have you?
No, so when I first entertained building a car, everybody around me said, it's best to start with, a project or something that's partially done or something that's original, so you can take it apart and go from there. But I never had a lump sum of cash to throw at anything. Like I had a Mustang when I was in just out of high school, daily driver, nothing crazy, but I kind of got into the modifying things and learning ins and outs of suspension and this and that from that. So I never, like I said, I never really had a lump sum of money to start with. So I kind of just started. Well, my sister moved into a house, and the house had a big garage. And I think the first 2 months, I just went to New Jersey and just picked up a rolling Model A chassis and just showed up at the house with this U-Haul and just unloaded it in the garage.
There you go.
And I was like, "Oh, is it cool if I build a hot rod in your garage?" She's like, "Sure."
That's a nice sister.
Yeah, really. So that's been pretty much what I started with, and it was a basket case. It was bad, but I ended up replacing the chassis with new rails. Let's see, the body was from Colorado. That was the hardest thing. I found the body was in pretty good shape, but it was an eBay find, and it was on eBay Motors, so they thought it was a car. So they're like, "Oh, we're gonna send a car carrier." I'm like, "No. I need a box truck with like a loading, or what's it called, a lift gate."
Yeah.
Shipping it cost more than buying it. It was ridiculous. But so I bought a body, local sourced, a Y-block Ford V8, transmission, rear, and then I kind of just pieced it together based off of just articles and magazines that I had, and kind of just little by little, piece by piece. And I think it took about 4 years to get it running and driving. So that was the first Model A that I built. Now I'm building some other crazy thing. So.
Okay. So, what car got away? Whether it's one that you had that you didn't really want to get rid of, or you regretted selling immediately, or you had the opportunity. You said you haven't had a lump sum, so probably not that. But a car that you wish you could have got, but you had to pass on it because of life.
Well, I guess I regret selling my Mustang, but it went to a good person. It went to a great person that I know personally, and his kids love the car, and it's the best thing ever, and it's so great to watch. I regret selling that car. I guess you could say, no, it's not necessarily one that got away, but from learning everything I learned building the cars that I built, or building the one car that I built and then building the one that I'm building now, the knowledge I learned, I could have built a better car the first time around. Mm-hmm. If I maybe worked in a hot rod shop and learned that way, so I could say hey, a 32 frame would work better if for this aesthetic or whatever, because I think in my opinion the most killer open wheel hot rod setup is a stupid low 32 frame Model A, as low as you can get with still having frame horns up front. Mm-hmm. On a 29 Roadster body with a Halic windshield. That's the best.
Heck yeah.
So 59 AB flathead, something like that. Quick change rear, the works. That would be probably my end all be all. I actually have a dash panel that I got from Grace and Company that they don't make anymore. And I could have used it 3 times now, but I refuse just in case I could build that car someday. Okay. I'm just holding the dash panel. That's all I can manage.
It's one of those you squint really hard, you can see
it's like you're reading my notes, because that was the next question was, if money wasn't an object, what car would you build? So there it is.
It'd be the 29 on 32 rails, big time.
Okay. Awesome.
So
that's awesome. So tell us about the car that you're currently building.
It's it's pretty. It's out there. So we moved in a house in Marple Township, and it has a small garage. And like I said, the first car was built in my sister's place, so I never really had a place of my own until I moved here. So I immediately like unloaded all my tools and equipment and everything, and I was like, all right, I got to start something like now before I just go nuts. So, as my dad would say, I was house rich, money poor.
Mm-hmm.
I had no way of investing anything into this. But through networking, I've gained so many friends from this community. They caught wind that I was interested in the project, and they say, I got these doors, I got this, I got that. What really sparked it, because a friend of mine had Model T touring parts, and he just said, if you can come get it, they're yours, and kind of make something out of it. And I kind of started piecing it together. And as I mentioned before, and I don't know if you guys don't want to get too into it, that's okay. But I was diagnosed with cancer in 2016. Mm-hmm. So right around that point where I started putting like a body together, I had to get hit with chemotherapy real hard. And so I was stuck at home. Mm-hmm. And a close friend of mine, he knew I was interested in the project. He reached out and he said, there's this cowl that I sold to a guy years ago. It's an Auburn cowl, 1929 Auburn sedan cowl. He's like, would you want it? Because he says that it's too far gone because this guy restores Auburns. Mm-hmm. And I said, sure, I'd take a look at it, but I'm in really rough shape here. I can't go anywhere. So my good friend John goes, I think it was like New Jersey, like South Jersey, doesn't tell me anything, drives to New Jersey, picks up this cowl, comes to my house, drops it off, and leaves.
Oh my God.
So, and does, no money exchange, no nothing, just, and that meant so much to me.
Good friends.
And I was like, I gotta build something with this. I can't let this just go.
Yeah.
So, again, long-winded story. Started with an Auburn cowl. Auburns are really wide, so I had to cut 6 inches out of the center. So I brought the size of the cowl in 6 inches, so it met like Model A stature. That friend that I spoke to, or that I mentioned earlier, gave me a bunch of Model T parts. The rear doors of the touring body were in really good shape. So I made door sills, clecoed them to the doors, and hung the doors off the cowl. Then I started little by little making quarters. I, English wheeled out a back panel. I bead rolled everything so it kind of met the aesthetic of what a car with those particular bead lines could look like. It was trying to make it like someone would buy that it was potentially factory car, mm-hmm. Not just sheet metal slapped on something and then let it go kind of thing. So I threw that together and just had a body sitting on the floor. A friend of mine donated a Model A frame. It was straight, but it was pitted, like really badly pitted. So what I ended up doing is instead of boxing it, because boxing plates cost like $160, something like that, a length of 24 foot 2x4 3/16 tubing costs less. So I just bought a 24 foot length of tubing, and I built the new chassis over top of the old one. So I used the old one as a template, mm-hmm. and I used Model A frame horns, 32 front cross member. I did a kick up in the rear, and then as time went on, I collected more parts little by little. It has 37 Ford front and rear axles. A friend of mine had a flathead for sale. That's a 59A. I think it's 1939. 48 trans, three speed trans. So it's kind of going down the road of like a traditional hot rod, trying to stay along like late 40s, early 50s. Okay. And since it's an Auburn cowl with Model T doors, I kind of gained the the name the T-Burn pickup.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a cab with and I'll make the bed eventually. I haven't gotten to that yet, but the front end's going to be pretty much like 31 Model A. So it's going to be an interesting look because of the T doors are really shallow. So it's going to be an interesting looking car, but right now I'm figuring out steering, and steering was a little bit of a challenge steering with a flathead in Model A style rails is a challenge no matter what. But this one was a particular challenge, but I think we're getting close. So
That's awesome.
Sound like it's going to be badass.
Oh yeah, and definitely like one of a kind.
That's the thing is, there's a lot of times that, you go and you look at something and the changes, it looks factory, but you're like, something just doesn't quite, something's weird. And unless one's sitting right next to it, you can't, like we went to a gathering and there was a chopped Merc and it was like hammered, pancaked, everything, like literally like open up the book and do everything you can possibly do to a Mercury. And Ashley snaps a picture of it and I'm like, well, do a 180. And she's like, what? And I'm like, that's the same car. Like it doesn't look that different. Like you could tell it's chopped, you could tell it's slammed, but like it was done well that it didn't look like it was that modified until you turned around and, oh, that's stock height. That's what the hood used to look like. That's what,
The windows used to be this big, and now you can't see through them big.
Oh yeah, especially in a flowing body like that. It's a chop of that caliber. You can tell right away when it was done the proper way, or if it was just kind of just thrown together. I learned a lot about chopping through Joel Davis. He does a chopping class all over the country, in fact.
Oh wow!
And I chopped I think it was a 46 Ford, and the process of using the steel you have at your disposal, not necessarily adding steel to make a nice flowing chop on a 40s, late 30s, through the 40s car. It's you can kind of like once you see it laid out in like Sharpie and the way that you cut it and the way that the top tends to lean back into the trunk lid, it starts to make sense. And then we had to add a little bit of steel here and there, but I've seen other chops take place, social media and all, where people, they don't even add a thing. They know how to move the steel where it's at, and it just flows perfectly. And I envy that big time. That's huge.
Zach Parks with Wired Customs, we had him on and he was like, well, bring that 54 up here. We'll get to chopping. I'm like, I got to get the 32 done first and then we can start cutting on that one. But I think, next weekend we're flying up to Indianapolis, and Voodoo Larry is doing a chop class. And
oh, nice.
I've tried to figure out a way that I can squirm my way over there.
That's awesome. That would be
even just to go meet him and say hey, because he listens.
That'd be great.
He listens to the podcast, so.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so that would be cool. And I mean, there's guys out there, like you said, that are doing amazing, wouldn't even, stuff that you don't even think about if you don't do it every day. And
right,
some of the chops and, if you just move this to here, just cut this and move it a little bit. Oh, that lines up now. All of a sudden, stuff that looking at cars that are chopped, I'm just blown. Well, even, sectioned cars and like, oh, I cut 6 inches out of the doors. I'm like, what? Like, how did that even work? But some of the, especially the old school guys, stuff that Winfield built, the uncertainty, those cars, like how does that even come out of your head?
Oh yeah. Well, the uncertainty, that was wasn't that like a kid's drawing or something?
Yeah, it was his buddy.
It was one of those.
It was his
radical.
buddy drew it on a napkin and was like, "Yeah, you can't build this," and he was like, "Okay," and then built it, and then vanished. That actually, I don't know if you've seen that on Instagram, but the frame cracked on that car going to the Detroit Autorama, and they had to repair it. It broke into two pieces in the car trailer.
Oh, gee.
It's the unfortunate reality is that's not a totally uncommon thing for a custom or something of that era. Things were, people using conduit to in every which way. It's the work now that people are doing now is nothing compared to what, meaning the work they were doing back then is nothing to what they're doing now.
No.
Now the chops and everything, like Tom Flop up here in PA, he chops a lot of mainly like Model A's and 32s and stuff like that, and his chops are unbelievable. And his level of craftsmanship is like just through the roof. And when you go and look at 60s, 50s, and 60s customs and stuff like that, at the end of the day, it looks okay. But if you roll that thing,
little sketch.
I don't know. Yeah. So, but that's the way it was. It's
I mean, and they were. It was serving a purpose. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of money, and they were building it like they didn't have a whole lot of money. I mean,
worked with what they got.
Yeah.
And they're still. I'm not. I'm house broke and car broke. So, yeah,
I know what you mean.
But fortunately, we get to go out and play with cars. The tow rig's actually under the carport right now getting steering put on it. And last night I would have threw a wrench at it and gave it to somebody for free because I was struggling.
Oh, I hear you. I've been there way too many times.
Well, I had the pitman arm for the drag link, where the drag link ball joint goes into the pitman arm. I beat on it. I forked it. I heated it up a little bit to try to loosen it up. 2 different pushers. Nothing was. Ended up we got it off tonight, but I thought I was going to blow my back out trying it. It was not. Jeez. And it fought all the way to the nut. Like I was like, this is, but hey, I got it. So now it's going back together. So we're on the positive side now.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just like I posted a video the other day on Facebook, and it was, you're in the garage and you're cussing and screaming, I hate this thing and I'm never going to do this ever again. And then you shut the garage door, you go inside and you come back out the next night and do it again. It's.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate reality is we're stuck in this. There's no way out.
It's an obsession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's worse things to be obsessed with.
That is true.
So you'd mentioned your wife. Is your wife is deep into cars, or, she just likes riding in them, or?
She tolerates them. I'll give you that. No, she's unbelievable, man. She's really into old cars, music. One of the overall goals of the Roadster pickup that I'm building, the T-Burn, is if I eventually go to sell it, I'm hoping to buy a 53 Ford and do like a mild custom.
Okay.
And the reason I mention that is one of my bucket list things is for Christmas we go to my wife's parents' house in New Jersey, and it's about an hour and a half drive or so. And we always listen to 40s Christmas music on the way up. And when you're on the road on Christmas Day, there's nobody around. So I thought it would be the greatest if we had a 53 Ford listening to 40s Christmas music on Christmas Day, driving up to New Jersey. I thought that'd be the greatest thing.
That'd be awesome.
So hopefully that'll kind of poke her a little bit to getting into hot rod stuff. I don't know. I'm hoping. But I mean, that would be her car to drive. So
That'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate. Ashley wasn't into cars when we first met. She was interested, but never really had the opportunity. And so when we got together, I was like, hey, this is a wrench. Go loosen that. And, it kind of told her, like, hey, like, this is my therapy. I'm in the shop, so if you want to spend time with me, it's probably going to be in a shop. So you can either sit over there and enjoy me cussing and screaming and working on shit, or you can grab a wrench and be under the car screaming and cussing and bleeding on our cars together. So
now that's what I do. And today I'm sitting at home because I work from home now, and there's a window right next to my desk that points directly out to our front yard where our carport is, where our tow rig is right now, apart. And I'm sitting there, like, not doing anything at work, and I'm just like, would they notice if I just left? Like, if I just came in and moved the mouse every once in a while, just went out there and did something just to help the process. Like, I feel like I'm starting to get, I don't know what I'm doing still, but I'm getting that bug. Like, I see the obsession, and I see the therapy that it, like, you had a bad day at work. Well, here's a hammer. Go bang on that until it comes loose. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I see
There's
it.
definitely something therapeutic about demoing big time. Yeah, she gets involved in some aspects of it. But mainly I would say motivation wise. If something's not going right, she can tell, if I'm getting in a rough spot or something. And she knows to, either give me space or the opposite. And at the end of the day, as long as she's happy, that's all I can ask for, and
awesome.
Just the support from her, especially with everything I've been through health wise.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I wouldn't want to be with anybody else. So
That's awesome.
yeah, we're lucky.
Oh yeah, big time, dude.
And I'm not to speak for your wife, but I'm going to for a moment here. But we're also lucky, I mean, just throwing that out there.
There's worse places we could be. We'd be on street corner. So,
Yeah.
at least they know where to find us.
Yeah, that's true. And being mechanically inclined in general, you always have, it's kind of like job security. So in a way, if especially when like I said, I started in the mechanical field, in the automotive world, but I adapted it kind of into an industrial field. I could always go back. There's so many different facets of mechanical jobs like that.
Oh yeah.
That you can learn how to weld on, building little things, hot rod stuff in the shop, and then you can go apply for a job somewhere, and you could be doing awnings for a couple of years and get proficient in that, and then go into doing pump systems or whatever. Yep. So it's one of those hobbies that could really develop into a lifestyle, not necessarily in the hot rod world, but mechanically for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could, start a podcast and talk to strangers on the internet.
That's true, yeah.
So,
this is great, man. I appreciate you guys letting me on.
No.
Well, I mean, you're the people we like to talk to. I mean, it's like, yes, we've had a couple people on that had, big followings or, YouTube channels or stuff like that. But the small guys like us, I mean, I don't have a shop. I'm working out of a 20 by 15 enclosed section of a carport and then a 20 by 20 carport because that's all we could fit on the property. I tried to fit more, but we landed here. And we're just doing what we can do with what we have. And I'm going to build cool shit out of a carport. So And that's what it's all about, is getting out and driving it, enjoying it. I love seeing, we basically started this because I grew up here. I know there's cool cars here, but for some reason they're tucked away, or you don't see them that much. So I'm like, well, let's do this. And we have a cruise coming up on the 17th, and we're going to try to get some of them cars to shake loose and come out and enjoy their cars, because looking at them in your garage is cool, but driving them is way cooler.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So. I mean, I'm sure you remember K&G Speed Shop on Westchester Pike. They would have a cruise. Do you remember that shop on?
I'm going to be honest.
It was Nicholas Smith was up front. It was the train store. Behind it was K&G Speed Shop that originally started in Havertown.
Okay.
They put a shop in Broomall, but they had a cruise in every last Friday of every month in the summertime, and it would be at least 40 cars, every time, and they just recently closed like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and they were a huge speed shop back in like the 50s and 60s, and unfortunately now since K&G went away, cruise-ins are, at least in the super local stuff, is kind of few and far between. A lot of the cars that I used to see there, I just see, once in a blue moon, just driving down the road. So now it's unfortunate, but we got to kind of drive a little bit to make it to cruise-ins now. And, it's strange. It's not what it was. There was a lot more shows, a lot more cruise-ins, maybe 5-6 years ago. And, like I said, now it's kind of, I don't know. It's strange. I mean, I try to drive my car as much as possible, and go to different events. But usually the main places we go to are a good 1.5, 2 hour drive. Highway white knuckling on the turnpike. But yeah, I value a cruise in. So,
and it's
a shame.
And even you coming on, not saying that we have a bunch of listeners that are going to be in your area, but this also, if we can get people started everywhere, like to know you're around, if someone has a question, it's just growing the car community, whether we can help put somebody together with something, because the 32, the Model A's, the stuff like that, I know enough to get me in trouble. So, like the steering on Dad's truck, I think it's close, but I had Gasser Garage reach back out again. Shout out to him. Send me pictures, and he could take a look at it and see, he gave me a caster setting. He's like, check this. And, certain things like that, I don't know about or might not have thought of. If this is a community, we want to be able to be able to spring ideas, and everyone across the country or other countries can help that. We're all doing the same thing. We all have the same goal of driving cool stuff. So if we can help people, if we can facilitate getting people out, let's do it. I want to see your car anyway. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think more recently, I think a lot of references have been lost, mainly on the internet. When I first started getting into the hot rod stuff, like early 2000s to mid 2000s, the Ham was huge. It was such a great reference of literally any aspect of building a hot rod, or traditional hot rod mainly. But now it's kind of been crowded with like advertisements, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's just me, But it seems like every time I find a link that could potentially answer my question, I'm getting answers from 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
But it's so crowded with junk. It's like I really wish that there was another, and maybe there is, and I just don't know about it. But I wish there was another place of reference. Like if let's say I'm just building like a T bucket or something like that, and I need to set up the rear axle, pinion angle, this, that, and the other thing. If there was a reference where I could just do a quick search and say pinion angle on kit car, blah blah blah, and I don't have to rifle through 400 Google searches that send me every which way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be really beneficial, and to me, the only thing saving grace that I have is that when I go through Instagram and I see something that someone posts that could be really useful, I save it on my save things. But my saved is like insane, so now I need to reference that. I need to go back and say, okay, I could have swore I saved something about shrinking steel down so I can go and then I got to go through. I was like, I swore I saved it somewhere and it's gone. So it's like. That's one thing that I wish would kind of get cleaned up. I think if the ham got cleaned up a little bit, and I talk like I don't know anything about running forums. Believe me, I'm sure it's very difficult, but that would be a huge, to bring that back would be huge, for especially, newer guys getting into it. It's very daunting. It's very easy to get, sidetracked and it's easy to give up. I've almost given up multiple times, but luckily I've networked enough, I've become friends with people that are kind of the voice of reason and calm me down and say, dude, it's just steering, relax. It's not that big a deal. Just do this X, Y, and Z and you'll be fine. And then I kind of clear my head and do it. I'm like, why was I freaking out? I don't know what the problem was.
Almost lost my, I said that in another podcast, and I said something about, like you're out there and you got a wrench in the drywall and you're cussing and screaming, and then it falls.
If I put something through drywall, I'm in trouble. I better not do that.
And it falls into place, and you're like, "Shoo!" Almost lost it there for a minute, and it's like, no, you did.
There's proof in the drywall.
But and that's another thing. Like I see articles or old pictures. And it's 3 or 4 guys in a garage working on something. And that's what we preach is, if you can get 2 or 3 good guys, they don't have to be super knowledgeable about everything. You're going to have one guy that's really, really good at figuring out how to make a suspension work. You're going to have one guy that's really, really good at beating metal and making it sort of straight. You're going to have one guy that's good at this, and then usually you're going to have one nerdy guy that will go through the ham and find what you need to find if y'all can't put your heads together and figure it out. And it's lost. And in the age that we're in, with all of the technology, and we all have Google in our hands, we all have phone, like, you don't have to go home to call somebody. Like, you just dial the number if you're thinking about it. There's a loss of communication. Like, there's not a lot of guys hanging out in garages building cool cars anymore. So, I'd like to change that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I learned during my quest to be in the where I'm working now is one particular place we worked in. There was a laboratory. It was a battery plant, and the guys in the lab were geniuses. They were unbelievable people, and they were putting things together. And they would come to a point where they're like, how do we accomplish this? I don't really know. If we add this compound or with this, that, and the other thing. Until they brought someone that had absolutely no idea what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
They brought that person in to look at it from the outside, and they come up with this simple solution that they never even thought about. Mm-hmm. And they said, "Wow, just bringing that person, getting another set of eyes on this, from a lesser, it's a hard thing to say, but lesser educated way, you know, it's like when I get my dad involved in the shop, like he loves being involved, and a lot of times he says, I feel like I don't apply much. I feel like, I don't know that much. I'm like, Dad, you're doing way more than you can even imagine. Just looking at this and saying, Rye, that looks a little off center. And I'll be doing something. If he didn't say that because of his perspective, I could have welded something in, and I could have to do 3 days of work backwards to fix something that I was just too ignorant to pay attention to. But because he has a different viewpoint, a different perspective, that just saved me a ton of work. And it's that group mentality, the multiple set of eyes on a project is everything.
We were just talking about that. Everybody you can learn something from everybody. I always use the example of you hook a trailer up and you're running back there and none of the lights are working and da-da-da-da-da. And some little kid with his Tonka truck playing goes, well, maybe if you plug the lights in, they'd work, but right. You get so caught up, especially when you're on a rhythm. If you're working on something and you got a flow going, well, you miss that one measurement that, it should still be where it was at. Well, no, you yacked over here and it pulled that measurement. Well, now your shit's crooked. So like you said, but somebody standing on the other side of the car seen it move, or, hey, that doesn't look quite right. And then y'all stand back and laugh and go, well, yeah, I'm glad I didn't weld that. That you can learn something from everybody. Even, Ashley has said the silly ideas. I'll be beating my head against the wall trying to do something. She'll walk up and go, hey, why don't we do this? And I can either explain to her,
switch from broken to fixed.
I can either explain it to her like, okay, well, I thought of that and we can't do it that way. Or, let's try it that way. And it might not be the solution, but it may be the solution to get to a port where my plan will work. Or maybe we need to brainstorm again and come up with that other silly idea to get it the rest of the way in. So you can learn something from everybody, and everybody has value. I know, which we're getting ready to go to another one, but the gathering where the guy I bought the 32 from, very, very knowledgeable. He's building a Trog Roadster now. And, we went to his house and they got to talking Model A's, and I'm just standing there like deer in the headlights. And they're like, well, why isn't this working? And I'm like, I have no idea. Well, this is the wood kit for this car. Like, why is it the bolt's not lining up on the frame? And I don't know how old the kid is, but guy on the other side of the shop, younger guy, our generation, he goes, oh, that's a whatever frame. And that's a so-and-so body. He goes, it ain't going to fit. And I'm like, from across the room. And I'm staring at it like, a Model A is a Model A, isn't it? No. He said, you see that frame? It's got a hole here and there. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, that's the frame you need. Well, so take that frame down, move everything from this frame to that frame, and now move the body over. All of a sudden it fits. It's because I'll be the first one to admit I got no idea. You were talking about
the ultimate foreshadowing.
Fords
are a pain in the ass.
You were talking about the Ashburns and the thises and the that's and that. A Model A is a Model A, but it's not. But to somebody that doesn't deal with them, I can't. There was somebody the other day said something, and I was like, oh, yeah. And I had to go Google a picture of both cars side by side to see the difference. Because staring at it, I was like, no, there's no difference. There's But this person deals in this car and goes, oh, that's the slight differences between, it's a 2829 or a 3031. It'd take me all day to figure that out. But some guys from across the country could be like, oh, no, from a picture of the car in the back of a garage. You see it all the time. Somebody will post something. Matter of fact, that's how my 32 got introduced to the internet. I posted a picture of the 54, and the 32 was just chilling in the background. And the guy's like, what's that 32 truck back there? I'm like, what? But,
yeah. The 32s are always going to stick out. Yeah, I mean, Ford, especially, the early days, the bodies and everything like that can definitely make you crazy. But when you start getting into like the lifespan of the flathead, that's enough to drive you insane.
Yes.
Because the ins and outs of it's amazing when you start getting into them though, because it's you can see it's almost like reverse engineering in your head when you're used to, like, for instance, just as an example, just simple ignition on a like small block Ford, small block Chevy. You're used to the same distributor, the way it looks, the way it forms, the way it operates, and you see the way that the flathead is kind of the same but different in very quirky ways. And the only way you can ever learn that is if you got to take it apart, you got to have a book in your hand, and you got to kind of piecemeal it together and say, this is why this is here, this is what this is made out of. And it's difficult. It takes so much time. And then the bodies are something else, because there's people out there that are extremely knowledgeable in Model A bodies. And for instance, the coupe that I have, the first car that I built, I said I got the body from Colorado. It was a sport coupe so it had a canvas and wood top and back, but full, coupe size, oriented doors and windshield frame. But somebody along the line, or somebody along long time ago, put opera windows in and the correct sheet metal to make it a standard coupe. But I bought it and it was kind of crooked and stuff, so I was doing a little bit of body work here and there. But to me, it was just a Model A coupe. Well, a friend of a friend saw the body, and he's like losing his mind. He's like freaking out about this body. I'm like, what's going on? Why? He's like so excited. He's like, look at this, look at that. I'm like, what's the big deal about this? He's like, you got a sport coupe, okay, with one opera window is from a 28, one opera window is from a 29 with a different roof. The rear window is from a two-door sedan that someone like pie cut the living daylights out of to make work. The top panels above the doors are like old factory replacements. Like the car's all over the place. And like the trunk lid was wrong. It was from like a 31. I'm like, what is going on here? But I'm like just listening to it, and I'm like taking it all in, and I'm like, oh man, I'm in trouble. This thing is such a, because I thought it was like, oh, rust free. It's beautiful, but it's all over the place. It's a Frankenstein like nobody's business. But we ended up making it work okay. But holy cow, he was like, oh, this is from a Murray body, and this is from that. And I was like, oh boy, I'm in for it, man. But at the end of the day, if it meets the aesthetic, looks like a Model A from, I'm a fan of 30 feet away. Mm-hmm. That's all that matters.
30.
It's going to be going, it's going to be going 50 miles an hour down the road anyhow. So you only have so much time to look at it.
Yeah.
I'm lucky if it goes 50 miles an hour.
I was going to say, if it's flathead powered, you're running it there at 50.
Yeah, that's why this one.
Oh, that's Y block.
Y block, but
yeah,
but still, it's not much better.
That was when I got the 32, I was like, I really want to put a flathead in it, just because it would fit that. And
oh yeah,
the more I got into it, I'm like, there's not a lot of room in here to run a 3-speed. So I was like, all right. if I'm going to put an automatic in it, I know it's sacrilegious, but I could run like a low car shifter and make it look like it has a 3-speed in it, but not have to try to figure out how to shift in a cab that is going to be hard for me and her to fit in with nothing in it. So I was like, all right, I think it's a 59 AB. They make an adapter where you can run a turbo 350.
Yeah.
I believe.
Like an Offenhauser or something like that.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'll do that. And then I went on a wormhole of like, okay, well, why? Why is it only that one that can adapt to it? And then I went and I did, and Ryan is actually the guy that I bought the 32 from. I was talking to him, and I needed backing plates because it's got 44 front brakes. So I needed backing plates. And I was like, well, since you know what I'm looking for, like, source me some backing plates because I have no idea. And he's like, all right, I got them. So I was talking to him, and I'm like, yeah, man, I think I'm going to put a flathead in it. And he's like, that's the most money you'll ever spend to go slow.
Yep.
And I went, yeah, I realized that. He's like, well, do you have any experience with flatheads? And I was like, nope. And he's like, okay, so it's going to be a lot of money because you're going to have to pay somebody. And I was like, no, like, I think I can figure it out. Like, he goes, no. And I was like, I think I can figure it out. And he's like, I'm telling you, coming from somebody that just built a flathead with somebody that knows how to build flatheads, no. He goes, it is completely opposite. He goes, do you know small block Chevrolet? And I went, yeah. He goes, put a small block in it. He goes, because if you know small blocks, you have no clue about a flathead. He's like, it's the complete opposite, and you have to make your mind work in reverse. And I went, you know what? A small block sounds like a great idea.
In my opinion, is flatheads are incredible engines. They look, I mean, they're Briggs and Stratton engines with 8 cylinders.
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing, simplistic. It's really an incredible solution for a cheap V8 of that time period. But there was so many issues that they had right from the factory, and they only got worse with time with the terrible oil that they were using compared to today's oil. And we have better coolant now and everything like that. So we're not only dealing, if you were to do a flathead today, you're not only dealing with the flaws right out from the factory, but hard use for a long time, and then sitting in God knows what for even longer. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the biggest hurdle for me. Again, this is just my opinion, but the only thing I could ever afford flathead wise would just be pretty much stock. Just, it's there for the cool factor, and maybe throw a cam in it for a little lumpy fun, but that's really it. If you're looking for like to cruise and to keep up with traffic and there's no value better than a small block. That's just a good way to put it is a set of rings let's say a set of rings and bearings for a flathead can run you like $600. A set of rings and bearings for a small block can be like you're struggling to maybe spend $150.
Yeah.
So it's a cool factor. I think flatheads are incredible.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely a beautiful motor. And I mean, his Trog build has a flathead in it, and it's all redone and beautiful and everything like that. But when we set the body on the frame, the fuel pump was in the way. This was in the way. I'm like, so all that fancy lines that y'all ran, now you have to rebend them because now they don't fit, and you have to adjust this over here. And because the motor was built somewhere, the body was put together over here, and then when they all mated together, they were not happy with each other. And it's like, and it's a beautiful, and the motor sounds great. Like it is very, very well built. And probably after I get the 32 done, I'll probably, because there's a guy down here that sells cheap flatheads, and I'll probably get one just to experiment, not to ever, like I was telling my buddy that was on the first podcast with us, he's a young guy that he doesn't have a whole lot of experience, and he's like, I want to do something, and he wants to put an LS in it, which is fine as long as it has a hood and sides on it and you can't see it. Go for it.
Yeah.
That was what he wanted, and he's like, I just don't know. I can't. He's like, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, you want an LS motor, right? And he's like, yeah. I said, buy one. He goes, for what? And I go, buy one. At that time, I didn't have a motor. I was like, borrow my engine stand, put it on the engine stand, take it apart, put it back together. I go, buy one not running. I said, that way, when you put it back together, if it doesn't run, you didn't improve it or break it. If it does run, well, guess what? You did it right. You made it better. If it runs like crap, well, it didn't run in the beginning, so you're making progress to get it to run correctly. So, take it apart. Exactly. Don't go out and spend $4 or $5 grand on something and then take it apart. Go buy one that's got a piston hanging out the side of it and take it apart and see how it works. Right.
There's a value in learning and cheaply that way. I mean, that was exactly when I wanted to get in the, I did the Y block for the coupe, and I that was a learning process, but I wanted a flathead in that car originally. But I went ahead with the Y block, but then right before we moved into the house, I picked up a 59A for like $100, and it was stuck, and it was in the bottom of the ocean for 30 years. It was a nightmare. But I didn't buy it for the sake of restoring it and this, that, and everything. I bought it to meticulously take it apart and take it all in. Mm-hmm. The way that the bearings look, the way that the rods look, everything. How much if I run air through the water jackets, how much I'm still getting factory sand from the original casting if I do that. I mean, there's things like that you learn from just taking things apart. And then what did I spend? $100?
Yeah.
And to me, that was really valuable information. And the only way you can learn really is you can always learn so much from an article and a picture. If you have something in your hand, that's night and day.
Oh yes, definitely.
So you had mentioned in the live, but Instagram is funny and deletes the live as soon as they end. So is there any shows or events that you try to make every year?
Yeah. I try to go to Trog, but that's been kind of a mess right now. It's supposed to be going on this year. So I'll try to make it to that. Jalopy Showdown. Well, it used to be called Jalopy Showdown. Now it's called the EMMR Hot Rod Annual. That's held in at Lincoln Speedway in Abbottstown, I think it's called. And that's a circle track meant for like outlaw sprint cars. But we've run, open wheel roadsters, speedsters, hot rod coupes. And then they have a car show kind of around the perimeter and swap meet and the whole thing. That is like my all-time favorite car show that I go to. I run the coupe in there on the circle track. I may not run the car this year because when you do run a car, you kind of miss out on the show because you're in the infield. So I may just kind of watch from the sidelines this year and take pictures and this and that. That's an excellent show. And then I do two other events. Both are held in Allentown. There was a circle track that was there many, many years ago that is still there. It's a fairgrounds now. But this friend of mine, EJ Kowalski, he's part of the EMMR museum. He runs like an 8th Mile drags on the original gravel that was that track in the fairgrounds, which is a fun event. It's just kind of run what you brung kind of thing. There's flatheads, there's early overhead valve stuff, tons of motorcycles. It's kind of like a mini trog, so to speak.
Okay.
But like super laid back, like just so much fun. We bring a tent, we cook hot dogs, and it's just like the best thing ever. So they do that twice a year. And I think there's dates for that. Unfortunately, I don't have the dates on hand. I should have been prepared.
It's okay.
But if you look up EMMR, it's both the Eastern Museum of Motor Racing, or Jalapa Showdown. You can get some information from that too. But those events are huge. I try to make those every year. Other than that, York is a big show. It's a little expensive to bring a car there, so I tend to just kind of hang out. Gasket Goons, it's a local club that we're familiar with. They're having 2 shows this year. They used to have a show at the end of the season. I think it's just the Gasket Goons show. I think that's what they call it. But there's a spring show that they're coming out with now. Again, no dates, no locations. I'm terrible at this.
That's all good.
But those are my favorite places to hang out. And but to be honest, I've been so occupied with the projects. They kind of, before I know it, someone sends me pictures. Oh, I went to the show. I'm like, what? And then I was like, oh yeah, I was knee deep in chassis work for the past 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So the EMMR Hot Rod Annual will be May 11th.
Oh, there you go.
I can't believe that's in Allen. So when I lived up there, I had no recollection of anything car related whatsoever. So to hear that Allentown, which is like spitting distance, essentially, I can't believe that. Well, now we have place if we're around there during that time, we have places to go right down the street from my hometown.
If you ever end up down here for Thanksgiving, reach out. We have Turkey Rod Run. It's a 4-day show.
I appreciate that.
At the Daytona Speedway.
It's awesome.
We will have.
I don't know. I think that would be the furthest south I've ever been. I think the furthest south I've ever been was Virginia. So.
Oh my Lanta.
Well, you're about halfway here then.
I mean, the barbecue is amazing. So that's if it gets better the further south I go, then I'll make a trip.
All right, yeah, come on.
It does.
The car. I mean, it's at the Daytona Speedway, so it's a huge. Like we typically do the car show one day, the car corral the next, and then the swap meet. Because it takes all day to walk the swap meet. Matter of fact, I bought a little mobility scooter last year because I was like, we walked 16 miles the first day we were there.
And barely saw a quarter of it.
Yeah.
That's a car laws like that. I'm sure you're familiar.
Yes, that we're going to make that one eventually too.
Yes.
They bring the auction down here, but they don't bring the swap meet. So
yeah.
So is there any shows that you haven't made it to that you would like to make it to?
Anything in California, period.
Hell yeah.
I'd love to do Grand National Roadster show is incredible. Mm-hmm. I really wish I could make it out there one day. Austin, Texas. I'd love to go Lone Star Roundup. That would be something else. There was a hill climb in like the Midwest somewhere. I don't remember what that was called. I'm a big I'm really into I don't know if are you familiar with Mad Fabricator Society. It's a guy who he films and he used to put out DVDs, and now he does mostly like YouTube stuff. He follows a lot of that side of the country's hot rod scene, and I love the way that he documents it because it brings me right back to like I said, growing up like skateboarding hot rod or punk rock stuff like that. He kind of films in like skate movies.
Okay.
So it's like it's edited in a way that just makes sense to me in my brain. So when you mix that with hot rods, it's like the best thing ever. Mm-hmm. So he documents a lot of stuff that goes on out there. So if you look up like on YouTube, Mad Fabricator Society, you'll see a ton of stuff that he covers. And anything that he goes to, I'd love to see. It's really incredible stuff out there.
Yeah, we're gonna venture to Texas in September for the Dragon Destroy Showdown. It's put on by Hometown Hot Rodder, another podcast out there that helped us. So shout out to them again because they have helped us grow. For my birthday, we're going out there. It's more mini truck than hot rods, but their podcast is called Hometown Hot Rodder, so they have a lot of hot rod listeners. So we've kind of got together with some of the people that have come to our side and was like, hey, let's go bomb their mini truck show with our hot rods. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
Which, I mean, mini trucks are cool too.
I showed up to a Volkswagen show once in a hot rod. That was interesting.
Hey,
it's crazy though. They embraced. I mean, I was shocked. You know, I went to a local Delaware County Community College down over here. They had it was a Cars and Coffee. Never been to a Cars and Coffee in my life. And a friend of mine had he's got a 31 Model A. He said, "Hey, there's a Cars and Coffee down the street from your house. Do you want to go?" I'm like, "It's a beautiful day." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I'm thinking this is gonna suck, right? It's gonna be like guys doing burnouts and whatever else. I go over there. The most amazing cars I've ever seen. Stuff like a Koenigsegg was there. Like, that's insane. Like, I'm parked. My crappy little Model A with the doors that barely shut is parked next to a Koenigsegg that's worth more than 3 of my houses. Like, it was unbelievable. And then there was like really like BMWs, Volkswagens, and everybody was like really, really nice. Like I was like really like you said, a deer in headlights. I'm like, I'm gonna be like, this is gonna be terrible. It was the best thing ever.
Awesome.
So like, I really that kind of opened me up to be like, I really should just embrace like all of it.
Yeah.
And just if I see, a show full of like I said, Volkswagens, why not? Just check it out.
Yeah.
You may learn something. You may see something, be like, I never thought I could do something like that.
Oh, there's some badass rods being created out of bugs right now. So the Volksrod movement, that was
Volksrods, yeah.
But yeah, we have a little, or it's not little, but we have one of the largest retirement communities in the country, like 30 minutes from here, and we got kicked out of their Cars and Coffee in my diesel. So,
oh jeez.
But we pulled up, and it's all village people. Like it's the villages. It's all like them. So it's like, okay, cool. And there was like one street rod, and like the rest was like your brand new Corvettes and your Porsches and your this, which whatever, like cool.
Your New Balances.
Yes.
And your yeah.
And like I parked off to the side because I didn't have the 50. Oh, the 54 was still so low that we couldn't ride in it together. So I had to lift that car 4 inches for us to be able to ride in it together.
Geez. And we still scrape.
And we still scrape every once in a while, but that's part of it. But so I like parked off to the side, and they're like looking down their noses, and I'm like, okay, well, I have a 7-inch exhaust tip, and it's going to be on your side when I leave here. So let's put your noses down a little bit. So when we were leaving,
there's always going to be that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, we had 2 things going for us. One, we pull up in a big jacked up truck, and then we climb out of that truck, and we are the youngest people there by 30 years.
Yeah.
So we stuck out like a sore thumb as it was, but
the one guy with the street rod, he was cool because when we first walked up, he was like a little like hesitant because, what do we know about street rods? What do we know about classic cars? And I'm asking questions, and oh, you did this, and it like dawned on him like, oh, wait, I'm not talking to a kid that has no clue. Like, oh, you put a Vega box on there. That's cool. Oh, it's got so okay, yeah. Like it. So he kind of come around, but the rest of them was like, we didn't really fit in. So I was like, all right, the next one we're taking the 54. I'll leave some rust puddles for them, stain up their ground. Yeah. But yeah,
unfortunately, I feel like that's the same in a lot of the car communities in general. Is there's always going to be, especially some could say in the hot rod world there is a lot of guys that kind of not necessarily. It's not that they are passing judgment just based on looks or whatever. It's almost like they just can't embrace the fact that people can learn this kind of stuff and people could potentially be interested in it. And it's almost like gatekeeping in a way. Mm-hmm. So Yeah, that's the tough part is, we kind of just have to shrug it off and
Yeah.
And
hey, my
then,
car's
and
cool,
then
man,
there's
so
the
whatever.
opposite. I mean, I've, like you said, you've networked enough, and the people, Ryan, the guy that I bought my 32 from, a wealth of knowledge. He's probably mid 40s, early 40s.
Sure.
He's a little older than us, but there was guys that he does a little gathering at his house, and there was guys that were our age all the way up to Ashley posted a picture, and this guy's probably, I would, being nice, I would give him 85. But he walked in and, we were the new people of the group. No one had seen our car. So, like, oh, who's 54? Mine. And we're out there talking about how I was doing this and, and accepted us in great and share knowledge. They comment on stuff like if I'm having a problem and I post it, because I still, that's mainly what I used social media for. And then obviously with the podcast, we have to use it to, try to stay a little bit on top of things. But, you post a picture or a question and you get a whole bunch of people. So there's people out there that want to help. And that's what we're trying to do, is put people together that want to help with people that want to learn, because I'll be the first one to admit I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. And there's certain things that I do know that I know they work for me. They might not be the right way, but I know you can accomplish it by doing it that way. And
right.
That was kind of our goal in this, is just to connect those people, because like you were saying earlier, swap meets and car shows and all of that have changed to more of a standoffish, unapproachable type. I remember being that little kid with a Hot Wheel and wanting to learn, and maybe not, if you got an Amber or a Riddler winter car, maybe don't put a kid in the front seat of that with their greasy hands. But, if you got a car like what we're building, let the kids sit in it, let them look in it, they're not going to hurt the car, let them take a selfie.
Any opportunity I get, I put kids in the car every time. Yeah. Anybody that looks at it, gives it a second of their time. Because, I mean, I have noticed that when I started off, it seemed as if maybe it was just the little niche that I was in, but it seemed like when the older crowd found out that I was, interested in like open wheel hot rod cars, they really made themselves available for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm very lucky to have that. Now, and I don't know if this is potentially a side effect of social media in general, because I know people get frustrated a lot when the same question comes up 100 times. Oh, yeah. How many, how do I take the valves out of a flathead? And people are freaking out. Oh my God, how many times are you going to ask? Do the search thing, whatever. But if we kind of just like step aside from that and be like, hey, people are still interested in this. Yes, I've heard this question 3,800 times, but this 18-year-old kid is taking apart an FE motor out of his Thunderbird. I'd like to lend a hand if I could, because it's only going to get better from here. I hope. I mean, now I'm in a different place than I was, but I hope that if I was the 18-year-old that I was today, I hope that someone could still have a place for reference or someone to help, reach out and help.
Oh yeah.
If because it can be daunting. You have a car from the 50s that no one else knows about, as people are blown away that the thing even runs. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to put together something and you're stuck. I would be awful to have nowhere to go.
Well, and that's Ashley. She not coming from this, you know, she still has little moments of, okay, this is why we do this. You know, the 54 was loaded on a trailer getting ready to go get traded, and the deal fell through. I unloaded the car. We went for a cruise and ended up at a little car show, probably 45 minutes from us. And as we're pulling in, we're in the turn lane. And this guy's shooting pictures in the show, and he whips around to watch us come across. And it's like, he's taking pictures of shiny cars and, you know, like all this. But he took the time to turn around and take a picture of us cruising into the show. And she's like, got all giddy, like, oh, he took our picture. And I'm like, yeah, he thinks our car's cool. Like, it is cool. And then you back in, and older people, you know, come up and go, is that a 54? Yeah, it's 54. Oh man, I got my license in a 54. Or I took my wife on to ice cream for our first date in a 54. Or, you know, our kids were conceived in a 54. You know, whatever, whatever the story is, they all have. And that's the thing with old cars for me, is it invokes a reaction. It invokes an emotion. Everyone has that old car story. You're also going to get the guy that, oh, I have one just like it. Well, I mean, it's a 4-door and it's blue, but it's just like that one, which is awesome.
It's a different manufacturer, but it's the same car.
Yeah,
it's the same.
You know,
well, that's like my good friend John. We go to shows together. We have like a little car club called the Magnetos. It was a car club that used to be in the kind of like the Philadelphia area, and it kind of went away, and we kind of revamped it from another club that's actually in Germany. You know, our Magnetos club is connected to that club. Anyway, we go to these car shows, and I come in my Model A, and he drives around. Currently, he's driving around a 1950 DeSoto 4-door.
Yeah.
Has a 318 in it. And it's lowered a little bit. But if you're familiar with those cars, they don't have grills. They have like cattle catchers up front.
Yes.
It's like the most unbelievable grill you've ever seen. It's humongous. And it's all patinaed out. Really awesome car. Killer car. Drives great. 318 was like perfect for it. So we go to shows, and the amount of people that come up to him and say, I haven't seen a 50 DeSoto since my dad bought it new. Mm-hmm. And we went to, you know, New Jersey with it every, you know, whatever. And the stories that I just overhear mm-hmm. from him, just, you know, talking to these people that are so familiar with that car. And it's just incredible, the attention that it gets. And it's just that, and it's kind of rare. You don't really see 50 DeSotos mm-hmm. in general.
Yeah,
but you don't really see a 50 DeSoto very much, and this thing drives everywhere. It's incredible.
Cool.
But yeah. But I'm over here in my Model A, just standing on the tire, just listening.
Well, I mean, whenever when you're driving down the road, people see it. They're gonna go, oh, well, they understand it's old. The fact that it's still driving around, I mean, means something.
Yeah.
Especially the 54, I mean, it doesn't look like it can make it out of my driveway. And sometimes it can't. If there's, when I first got it, if there was 2 people in the car, I'd have to tell them to get out so I could drive down the road and they could get back in on the hard road. But yeah, that car, I have no clue how the gentleman that I bought it from drove that car. But I bought it knowing I was going to have to do stuff to it.
Oh, yeah.
But so, what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody that's trying to get into the car life?
Car life in general, or?
Yeah, just, they're interested in cars and they want to take the next step of getting into it.
Well, I would say that's a tough question. There's so many things. Well, if you're trying to get into it, and be frugal about it, because it's easy to just buy stuff, and then have your toys, right? But if you're into it for the right reasons, just be an open book, and don't be afraid to try something just off the wall, something that you're not used to, and it's just, there's so many there's so many facets of it. I guess just don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to mess something up. That's one reason why I never got into woodwork, because if you mess something up in woodwork, not all the time, but if you mess something in woodwork, it's done. It's over. You throw it away. You start over.
Yes.
A lot of metal stuff, even if you just royally screw it up, there's always a way out of it to fix it. And the best part about that is you can't not learn through a failure.
Right.
If you mess something up, whether it's chassis work, engine work, whatever, even if you blow the thing up to bits and pieces, I'm sure there's something salvageable there. So there's always a lesson to be learned. It's just a matter of being able to absorb it and not get discouraged.
Yep.
And just keep at it, and it's only going to get better. It rarely gets worse. Maybe if you're in a business, it might get worse. But if you're doing it for the fun aspect, for the hobby aspect, and you're really genuinely interested in it, don't be afraid to fail.
Awesome.
That's good.
Oh yeah, very well put.
Sorry, it took me a while to get there, but
Hey, no,
all good.
you're good. So with that being said,
Don't forget to go to Throttle Addict, where if you use the code word HOTROD, you get to save 15% off.
and also make sure you go check out Swap It Fast. They're doing good stuff over there. Check it out. It's free to be a buyer. Make that connection and find that needle in a haystack.
Oh, yes.
And also, we are 24 hours away from the as of recording this episode. So at 5:00 p.m. tomorrow,
March 1st, we will no longer be taking orders for the pre-order. So if you would like a shirt, send us your sizes and your email so we can get you sent over an invoice. Yes.
With that being said, y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan, again.
thank you guys. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Later.